Hello and welcome to the webinar. Today's webinar topic is, have you outgrown QuickBooks? Unanet is the clear choice for scaling your organization. My name is Robin Burns and I currently lead the customer solutions team here at Unanet, and I'm joined by my colleagues Chris Craig, our president and COO, who will be doing our demonstration, and Kim Koster, our director of product marketing, who will be helping us with the polls. A quick note about this web meeting: if you experience some lags due to network or internet connections, you may experience some of those delays. If your screen stops updating, you may want to exit and try rejoining the webinar. I also wanted to point out that you can submit questions at any time during the webinar, and that within the GoToWebinar panel there is that orange arrow. If you click that, it'll open up the menu, and then you can go to the questions and answers tab and submit those questions directly in the panel, and we'll try to answer those throughout the webinar. We do have two poll questions that we're going to be asking, and that we would appreciate your participation in responding to those. And if we have time at the end, we will open this up for questions as well. Okay, so a little bit about current financial systems. This slide is a lighthearted representation of how people view current systems. Some current offerings are low cost, but they'll only take you so far, so fast, and require a lot of dedicated effort to keep them running. Other offerings have seen better days. They were innovative in their time, but they're not being maintained or enhanced and are far from modern or contemporary. And then there are those offerings that are very complex and very expensive and are not affordable for most businesses. Finally, there's systems that were originally developed to serve a different industry, such as manufacturing, and have been heavily modified to fit the professional services market and are no longer supported by those original manufacturers. Unanet Financials was and is developed specifically to meet the priorities and challenges identified by many companies and our customers that needed a better solution. Visibility across the organization is one of those key factors. Having that insight into metrics across these three major areas: product management, project accounting, and financial accounting, and looking at how these systems provide support, we can see that with QuickBooks, it really covers that area of financial accounting and reporting, and even some of the project accounting, but it requires other vendors, other solutions for time and expense collection, your indirect rate calculations, invoicing when you get into cost plus and fixed price type contracts, tracking funded value, real-time access and reporting for project management purposes. It only goes so far, and it requires other solutions. This means that QuickBooks customers are using Excel and other add-ons to really meet their requirements, since the core functionality of the product doesn't have all of the technology needed. As a result, there's a lot of inefficiencies, duplicate data entry, reconciliations associated with multiple systems and integrations. You have delays in getting real-time information. There are no real-time notifications or alerts. Unanet, as that single solution, one database, one application, has that ability to meet the needs across the entire organization. So when QuickBooks was selected for your company, it was most likely small and maybe emerging or a startup. You could handle a large part of your activity on a combination of QuickBooks and Excel or even other applications. Once your business starts growing, QuickBooks and the other solutions you have in place don't scale well, and you begin to notice inefficiencies. It's very difficult for QuickBooks to keep pace with the demands of a growing professional service business or with government contractors. So you can see here some of the signs that you can look for. If you have 3 or more Excel spreadsheets open on your computer at any point in time, if you need a tool that can scale to grow with you, you have concerns about meeting security requirements, your project management discipline is maturing, but you have no tools to really effectively manage those projects. You have manual processes for billing and revenue recognition, and that's impacting your bottom line because it's inefficient. You're being audited and you're scrambling for information to support those audits, or you're having issues with compliance and meeting those audit requirements. Your accounting team is growing and your internal expenses are going up. And then, you're looking really for a consultative partner as well as an ERP solution. So these are all signs that it may be time to look at other solutions. So we're going to go to our first polling question.
Okay, Robin, thank you very much. This is one of the most fun parts of the webcast, so if you guys would please vote here. So what are your biggest challenges today? Is it manual billings, the volume of reconciliations that you have, access to real-time information, disparate systems and Excel spreadsheets, or all of the above? So Robin, what do you think this is going to show us?
Well, if I had to guess, it's either going to be the disparate systems and Excel spreadsheets, or it's going to be all of the above.
Okay, so we're getting there. People are still voting.
Because, one of the challenges of having things in spreadsheets and offline, not only do you have that potential for error, but there's that lack of visibility.
Exactly. Okay, so here were the results. So you were actually correct. Disparate systems and Excel spreadsheets won the poll.
Okay. Okay. So to continue, Unanet customers. This shows you some of our Unanet customers, and it's organized to show you that how we scale as you grow. And it also reflects, customers in multiple verticals: commercial, government contractors, professional service organizations. And you can see they start with those smaller organizations of less than 50 users and, move into that mid-size where you've got 51 to 250, up to 1,000, and then over 1,000. So this, again, is just a representation of some of our customers and how we really do grow and scale with our organizations. Some of these customers that are in that large and very large size actually started as small customers, and we've grown with them over time. One of the things that's important, when you look at something like this is, when do we invest in a scalable solution? And it's not once you're behind and you're bottlenecked. It's really, you need to make that investment for growth before you're behind that curve. Otherwise, it's almost impossible to catch up. We said that one of the important things to look for is spreadsheets, as well as that ability to grow and scale. Unanet is purpose-built for project-based organizations, and we really do help manage the entire project lifecycle from bid to bill to book. And this is critical as you grow, starting with that budgeting, planning, and forecasting, where you have that ability to do things like pipeline management. You can get into your resource scheduling and skills management, scenario planning based on revenue, cost, and then you have that ability, once you create those plans, to actually forecast out into the future and report and see, what is that margin at the end of my period of performance, or at the end of the quarter, or the end of the year? Where am I predicted to be? You can run different scenarios to have insight into pricing. From there, we can move into the execution phase, where we're really talking about, the entry of time and expense reports, per diems. We have the approval workflow, and then project notes and contract management, where we're getting into that collaborative feature with documentation and notes, that ability to have attachments for things like your statement of work, your contract modifications. You can even assign tasks to people and look at open activities. So there's a lot of collaborative type activities there as well. Then you get into the real-time analytics, KPIs, and dashboards, where you have that real-time information. As soon as your time and expense information is entered into the system, project managers can see the impact on their projects. They can look, again, real-time at utilization, project status. You can see that percent complete earned value management, gross and net margin, backlog, and it really facilitates, again, that ability to manage your projects. As we move into the billing and revenue recognition, we support all of the different contract types from time and material, fixed price, cost plus, or cost reimbursable, as well as blended contract types. Revenue recognition models that are GAAP compliant can be based on percent complete or milestone billings. You can have different billing schedules. We have very flexible invoice formats, and it's all combined with a very efficient invoicing process. And finally, we get into the financials. This is your back office accounting, where you've got your general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, your cost pools, and your indirect rate calculations. So all of this is that single solution that really does support your entire organization. One of the signs that we had mentioned was security concerns. Cybersecurity is a current topic in the news these days, and it's a concern for all organizations. Government contractors are particularly sensitive to this issue, and there's specific regulations that require compliance by the end of this year. That speaks to government contractors who store controlled, unclassified information in non-federal systems are required under some of the DFARS regs to comply by the end of the year. Data in government contractors' project management system and accounting systems is considered controlled, unclassified information. So again, this could be very important to some of you. And then the compliance with some of the NIST regulations relies on policies which the contractor may already have in place. However, there's a couple of additional requirements that relate to prompt incident reporting and the use of multi-factor authentication. Unanet currently satisfies all of these requirements, and our customers with our cloud offering, that Unanet hosted web-based solution, will be notified of any unauthorized intrusions. And then multi-factor authentication is achieved with Unanet through the integration with a wide variety of industry-leading providers in identity and access management tools. Another thing to note when we talk about security concerns is that Unanet software is all developed, hosted, and supported here in the United States, and it's exclusively by U.S. nationals. It's not a requirement of the NIST standards, but it does, however, provide that additional measure of assurance for our government contractors and other customers. It's especially important in comparison to some of the other industry softwares out there. So from a project management perspective, that real-time information is so important. The full project lifecycle from bid to award to execution and then closeout, with real-time reporting on KPIs and status performance, having those notifications and alerts, both dashboard and email, and then your resource management, allocation, planning, and that ability to forecast based on plans, revenue, cost, and margin. Having it all in one place, visibility across the entire organization is really key. So this slide is a customer success story for one of our customers. We mentioned that many of our customers that are using Unanet Financials have migrated from QuickBooks. And one of the recurring themes with these customers is the time savings and efficiencies they've gained in their processes. And it's significant since it contributes, to those indirect costs are reflected in your indirect rates and your cost of doing business. This example with Capital Edge is around billing and invoicing, and it's a great story of how they had specific needs where they wanted to reduce duplication of efforts. They wanted something that was easy to implement. They needed a responsive support team with visibility to reporting for employees outside of the finance team. And you can see after the implementation, they were able to reduce their billing cycle by 2 days, and they're able to focus on transformational aspects of the business instead of just pulling reports for project managers. Their project managers can now run their own reports, and they have visibility through real-time reporting. They've got a better workflow for everyone. Their Excel spreadsheets are retired, and they're able to look at indirect rates and budgets, not just real time, but into the future. Another one of those signs that you may be outgrowing QuickBooks was that preparation and ability to satisfy audits. You know, there are many different types of audits, from financial statement audits, system audits, compliance for time, incurred cost. You have your pre-award, incurred cost audits, and contract closeouts. You know, systems are a tool and part of what's being audited, but in order to be compliant, you have to have policies and procedures, documentation and training, as well as that consistent administration, and then that ability to provide substantiation to the auditors. You know, Unanet customers have been through many audits of all types, and we can see with this quote here from one of our customers that says one of the several benefits is the ease of satisfying DCA audit. We had our first pre-award audit at the first of the year. Using Unanet system made this audit very simple. We were able to satisfy the auditor within 1 hour of his arrival, and he'd originally set aside 2 days for the audit. So that's huge. If you can meet the requirements, show them what they need to substantiate all of their questions and your costs, it just makes life so much easier. And that was really one of the goals and one of the real wins in a system like using Unanet. Another thing, another indicator was your accounting team. Is it growing? And are your costs going up? If your costs are going up, is your profitability going down? Is the head count, the size of your accounting team, going up? You know, these can all be indicators that it may be time to look for another solution. You're struggling with redundancies, duplication of effort, and just inefficiencies, and your internal costs are increasing. Managing this is critical to remaining competitive. Okay, I think it's time for our next poll.
It is. So this poll is, when are you planning to change your ERP system? So 0 to 3 months, 3 months to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, 1 to 2 years, or really unknown?
And you know, I'm going to guess on this one that it is a mixed bag, and that we've got people that are thinking about it now and others that have, you know, no real plan to change, but they're just interested in what else is out there.
Actually, I just published the results there for you, Robin. A lot of unknowns, but quite a few too in the near term. So the 6 to 12 months, I mean the 3 to 12 month time period. So
okay.
A pretty nice mix.
Very good.
Okay.
Yep. To continue. Okay, so a little bit about Unanet's customer success. You know, our customers really are the core of our business, and you know, our goal is to really help our customers achieve their desired outcome. And you can see from this slide we have a lot of tools in place and resources for our customers. Starting, you know, with that initial implementation, you know, with our professional services team. We've got the Unanet University, which provides training, several service products, Quick Start and Keystone for implementation. They work with integrations, implementations of enhanced features and additional consulting. We've got the Cloud Data Warehouse and the partner program. And then we can get into, you know, customer success. Every customer has a customer success manager. We have that ability to, you know, obviously provide demos, discuss features and functionality, and work with our customers to make sure they are achieving those desired outcomes. Our customer support team, which is very responsive. They're available to help with issues, errors, and troubleshooting. And then our education and our self-help tools, where we've got the Knowledge Center, which is available to everyone, not even just Unanet customers. It's available on the web. We have our YouTube channel. We have regional events on a regular basis. We have our annual Champions Conference, which was in San Diego this year and will be in Tysons Corner, Virginia in 2018. And then you can see we've got our LinkedIn user group and customer newsletter as well. Another real strength of Unanet is our partner ecosystem. We have a large partner network, and our partners are certified to implement Unanet, and they include many industry-leading accounting and technology firms. And you can see just a few of those listed here. A few Unanet differentiators. We are 100% web-based with 2 different deployment models. We do offer that bid to build a book life cycle for both government contractors and commercial firms. The real-time visibility really is a real differentiator. I always like to highlight the integrated resource forecasting and reporting. In that people-based business, that ability to really optimize your use of your people, your resources from a perspective of cost, capability, skills, labor categories, is really important and an investment in your business, and it helps you achieve a real differentiator against your competitors. Unanet is very different in that we haven't gone out and purchased other solutions to add to our core functionality. We were grown and developed organically, starting with our web-based timesheets, adding expenses, resource planning and forecasting, project management, project accounting, and finally, accounting and financial reporting. This makes us very different from most of our competitors, as they started as an accounting solution and then have either added additional functionality either through an acquisition or development. We developed first, and it's been a strategic plan based on our customers, what our customers tell us they need. That last item on there, that we're self-funded. Our customers do drive our product roadmap, and so our development and where we go with the product is truly based on what our customers say, and it's not driven by private equity firms or venture capital firms. As far as Unanet financials, I'm going to let Chris show you most of these in the demonstration, but there are a lot of real highlights and capabilities that Unanet offers. In addition to that ability to see, real-time information across the organization. We support multiple legal entities in a single database. We have a dynamic, scalable, and flexible data structures, which, is really important. And again, I'm going to let Chris show that to you. And then, the other one on here that we mentioned, audits. That ability to have attachments to all of your financial transactions just provides that substantiation, both when you're going through that review process before posting, but also under audit down the road. You're not going back to your files in the warehouse looking for information. It's right there in the system. We do have easy and customer-driven migration tools, and we have a lot of usability features as well. When I mentioned those migration tools, QuickBooks Convert is a powerful tool that we developed, and it provides for the migration and conversion of data from your company QuickBooks file into Unanet. QuickBooks converts or transforms that information that's stored in that company QuickBooks file based on user-entered configuration rules. So you can do that mapping, and then the Convert tool will run the imports for us. The QuickBooks Convert eliminates risks and reduces the effort and time required for the conversion. And it can be used by clients who are new to Unanet, as well as by clients who are currently using Unanet and that are interested in implementing financials. Okay, and Chris, I'm going to let you take it over and work on the demonstration.
Awesome. Thank you, Robin. As a reminder to everyone on the call, these webinars are always more exciting, more interactive when we have audience participation. And if you have a question, it probably means somebody else has a question. So feel free to log your questions in the question section of the GoToWebinar console. And Robin and I will periodically go over and check on those and try to make sure we're making this as relevant as possible for you and as productive as possible for you. Could you make me the presenter? There we go. All right, so you should see my screen on your browsers now, or on your monitors. Okay, great. So as Robin mentioned, there's a lot of functionality in Unanet, and unlike QuickBooks, it is purpose-built for project-driven professional services firms where people are the primary driver of the revenue and the primary contributor to the costs. So Unanet is not for manufacturing, it's not for banking, it's not for retail. It's really, companies where the billable hour is the primary asset of these knowledge-based firms. And when we log in, Robin in her PowerPoint mentioned a lot of information around security and compliance and cybersecurity. Unanet is a role-based system, ROLE role-based system. So depending on the roles you associate with people's profiles, that determines their level of access of what they can and cannot see, what they can and cannot edit, which clients they would have access to, which projects, which departments, which employees. So you can set up people to have different role-based access, and then when they log in, they'll see what they've chosen to see and what they're allowed to see. So on this dashboard that we're looking at right now, we have a various number of charts and reports on the left-hand side. Keep in mind, you can make Unanet as simple or as sophisticated as you want. You may only have one chart on your dashboard, or you may only have 5 reports on the left-hand side. It's really up to you as far as how detailed you want the data to present. We have a lot in this system because it allows us to answer 95% of the questions we get with 2 or 3 clicks of a mouse. And just for navigation purposes, each of these menu items across the top represents a different, what we call dashboard. So this is our home dashboard with a set of charts and reports. This is our project dashboard with another set of charts and another set of reports. This is our forecast dashboard with another set of charts and another set of reports. So you can put your various charts and your various reports on these different dashboards. Now, you may have remembered Robin had a slide up there that basically had 5 different components of the Unanet lifecycle, and we're going to go through those 5 components now. So the first component, keep in mind, we're doing 20 years of software here in about 35 minutes, so it will be 30,000, maybe 10,000 foot view of what's going on in here. And again, if you have questions, we can dive into those in more detail. But the first piece is that Unanet allows you to forecast out into the future. So for a lot of our customers, especially companies that run QuickBooks, they're doing this in Excel now. And again, one of the reasons that the reason that was most commonly cited in the poll was that people want everything in one system, one single source of truth. So when you log into Unanet, you have one system, one single source of truth, and it begins with forecasting. So looking out into the future, if people are the primary driver of your revenue and the primary contributor to your costs, how are those people planned to work for the next X periods? So quickly from here, you can see who's overbooked in red, you could see who's underbooked in yellow, you could see when resources become available. And right now we're showing you week over week. We could show it month over month, quarter over quarter, day over day, whatever you want there. We can also drill down. So in Unanet, there's a lot of click-through capability where you see a plan, you can find that person, and you can drill down and you can see what they're booked on, these 3 engagements that make up that overbooking. And there's skills you can query on. So if you wanted to apply skills to people, Spanish linguist, Java programmer, whatever skill sets you want to define, you could search based on skill sets, find the people that match those skills, and then you can also apply probability percentages to these forecasts. So right now, Bob is 167% booked, but if you go back to the criteria, you can say use the probability percentage in the calculation, and when you do that, now he's only 83% booked. So why is he only 83% booked? It's because PS upgrade is only 25% likely to happen, and Space Station is only 50% likely to happen. So it's doing a weighted forecast or a expected value calculation based on the probability percentage. So in Unanet, you can have your active projects, but you can also have your pipeline, and you can define whatever project statuses you want, and then you can associate probability percentages with these as well. So here we have an opportunity or a concept. So if we go into the opportunity and we win the business, we can basically come in here and flip the switch and make it an open active project, and then people can start reporting against it. So you define this list of your pipeline phases, and again, it's just kind of going in and flipping the switch as far as when you win something, when you lose something, if you want to track lessons learned, that sort of thing. But when you're planning people, those people can have rates associated with them as well, bill rates and cost rates. So this is a revenue forecast now showing us by customer by project what our planned revenue is into the future. And right now we're expecting $922,000 in the next 12 weeks. If we go back to the criteria, again, we can apply probability percentage to the revenue as well. And then when we run that report, the 922 gets factored down to 810 because, again, these are being weighted based on the probability percentages of them occurring. So in addition to the revenue, you could also forecast your other direct costs and your indirect costs. So you could see your true margin across projects into the future. So this is basically showing you for 2018, what are all of our labor, all of our ODCs, all of our indirects, and then if we do what we plan on doing, what is our expected margin? So again, just want to remind everyone there's a questions section in the GoToWebinar console. You can expand that console by clicking on the orange arrow. It'll say show control panel if you mouse over it, and then you can go to the question section and type in your question. If there's not any questions on the forecasting, the planning, budgeting component of Unanet, I'm going to go ahead and log out and move into that second section that Robin was talking about of the execution, where the employees come in and the employees can actually interface with Unanet. And again, they have a very slimmed down interface. We talked about security and role-based access. They only see what they're allowed to do. So they only see timesheets and they only see expense reports. And again, it's all one system. It's all one database. So if I'm logging time on a timesheet, this is a weekly timesheet. You can do bi-weekly, semi-monthly, monthly. You can start on any day of the week you want. It doesn't have to start on Sunday. But just kind of working left to right, you have a list of projects that people can charge against, and you can restrict so they can only see the projects they're authorized to charge to here. You can also restrict when they can charge to something or how much they can charge to something. You can restrict which tasks they can charge against if you want. Right now we're only showing you 2 columns on the timesheet. You can have up to 6 columns on the timesheet, just depending on how complex you want to make the entry for your end users. So examples of other columns could be labor category, where is the work, what role are they acting as? Location would be where is the work being performed. Project type, if you want them to say whether the work is billable or non-billable or something like that. Pay code, is it regular time, overtime, double time, that sort of thing. And then for each cell of time, you're putting in the duration of hours, and you can also put in comments, kind of free-form qualitative comments as far as how you spent your time. And again, since Unanet is all one system, it's all one database, you can have these comments appear on the invoice if your client wants to see verbiage on the invoice on what the employee actually did. You could actually force them to put in comments on a project-by-project basis if you want to. So we just put in a couple hours, and for this particular project, PS Upgrade, it requires comments. So if I enter a comment in this cell, that error message will go away if I put it in the right cell. There's also certain rules about time reporting that you can enforce. So if you don't want them putting time in the future, for example, you could put in vacation in the future. You could put in vacation on Friday, but if we try to charge to other codes, it may prevent us from charging time in the future. And if we go back and change time, we'd have to put in a reason as to why we made the change, and it will timestamp who did it, what they did, when they did it. So when the auditors come in, there is a change history report. You can also have email reminders go off and ping the delinquent users whenever and however often you like. So today at 5 p.m., tomorrow at 8 a.m., again, whenever, however often you like. We also have a mobile optimized version of the timesheet. So if they're putting in time through their iPhone or their Droid or their Windows mobile device, they could enter the time here. It's kind of sized it like a phone, and you can see what it looks like on the phone. If we go back to the end user interface, there's a variety of reports they can run. So they can run, self-service reports on their own leave balances. If they want to see what their leave balance is, what they've accrued versus what they've used, and what their balance is, they can do that here. If they want to see what they're going to have in the future, they can project out into the future. If they want to take vacation at the end of September, they have 96 hours available for them. If you're asking them to hit certain utilization targets or billable targets, you can give them a tool to see how they're progressing against those targets. So we have the concept of push reporting in Unanet, where you push the reports out on a scheduled basis. You can always run them on demand whenever you want, but if you want to have Unanet fire off emails every week or every night or every 2 weeks or whatever frequency you want, an employee could get an email that would basically show them this information to ensure they're hitting their utilization targets. They could also see how they've been scheduled to work. If you are planning them into the future, what do we plan to work on for August? What do we plan to work on for September? And then from a expense report standpoint, they could also fill in expense reports. So they could track the status of their expense reports here. They can see where they are in the approval process. If they want to go into an expense report, basically they have different expense types they can charge to, and you can limit which expense types go with which employees and which expense types go with which projects. So they see the valid intersection here. You can attach receipts to the expense report. So if you have a phone, you can just snap a picture of your receipt and attach it here. I took this with my iPhone, or if you have a Droid or Windows mobile device or tablet or whatever, you can do that. You could bring in your credit card charges on the expense report. And then you could also, if you do have a concept of geographic per diems, you can enforce those geographic per diems. So depending on when you were there and where you were, it tells you the appropriate reimbursable amount. And if you go over that amount, it will actually calculate unallowable amounts for you and place those on a separate line. So with time and expense, you can save and submit at the bottom. So that's kind of the second of the 5 areas. There is an approval process in Unanet, obviously, where they have to come in and they see all their timesheets that have been submitted to them. So we're logging in as a manager now, and they can see what timesheets have been submitted and what expense reports have been submitted, and there's a concept of alternates. So you have an alternate level of approval there. And then from here you go in, you review what was charged, and you can either approve it, go to the next one in the queue, or you can disapprove it. If you disapprove it, it will force you to put in a reason as to why you disapproved it, and then it generates an email back to the employee telling them why they was disapproved. So this is probably a top 10 report in Unanet. It's basically showing you the status of everyone's timesheet in the system, where it is in the approval process. So your goal is to get this to turn green at the end of each period. So if you want to see who your 9 delinquent people are, you could click on the slice of the pie and it shows you who those delinquent people are. Okay, so I'm going to move into the third area now of Robin's diagram of the 5 areas, which is the metrics, the KPIs, the key performance indices, the dashboards that you can run out of the system. And when we're looking at Unanet in QuickBooks here, again, Unanet is really purpose-built for project-driven professional services firms. And we've done countless surveys on what are the key metrics that you run to operate your project-driven professional services business. And time and again, the number 1 metric is employee utilization, billable time, because again, the employee's time is the number 1 driver of the revenue, the number 1 driver of the cost. So making sure employees are billable is key to our customer success. Really, the project performance is a leading indicator of the overall corporate performance. So if your projects are doing well, your employees are at high billable thresholds, at the end of the day, your income statement is going to look a lot better than it is otherwise. Again, just as a reminder, this is probably the furthest I've gotten into a webinar without any questions being submitted through the console. So if you have any questions, you can submit those through the GoToWebinar console. We'll try to answer those in real time as they come in. But if you have any, we're in the third area now on metrics. So if there's any particular report you'd like to see on utilization, on gross margin, net margin, actual versus budget, percent complete, any type of report, let us know and we'll try to replicate that for you. I'm just going to show some of the more commonly run reports. So this is basically utilization. What's nice about Unanet, again, since it's all one system, it's all one database, we can show actual and planned utilization on the same screen, and we can show it for this year and take actuals through today's date and plans as of tomorrow. So the actuals will be run through today, the plans will be run through tomorrow, and this is the resulting output. See, the actuals are represented by an asterisk, the plans are represented by a plus, This is all actual historical data through June. We're reading timesheets in July through July 11th, and then plans as of tomorrow. So this is all kind of, July has both actuals and plans in it. August and beyond is all forecasted utilization there. So again, this is kind of the number one metric we see across professional services firms. Now, other key metrics are performance, so burn rate type report, budget versus actual information. This is kind of the most simplistic view. Instead of having to run this, you can also set alerts that will ping you when certain thresholds are hit. So ping us when we hit 75% of the funded value. And it will ping you with an email, and it will also show up in your dashboard when you log into the system here. You have unread project performance alerts. So you click on this and it shows you everything that's triggered since you last checked it. And then taking that a step further too, you could also take into account percent complete. So based on the percent complete for the current period, for the life of the project, if we look at the far right column, it's basically saying if we continue at our current rate, this is how we're expected to finish, either under or over budget. So a lot of our customers will run this at their weekly or bi-weekly management meetings to determine where they need to focus their efforts. And then obviously you can take into account indirect costs. So this is a job summary report for one project or multiple projects, all of our labor, all of our ODCs, and all of our indirects. So if we're indirectly spreading our fringe benefits, our 401k, our vacation, our insurance, if we're spreading those out across projects, or our overhead, our rent, we can spread that out across our projects, or G&A, our finance team, our admin team. If we want to see what is our true margin on our projects, not just our gross margin, but what's our true margin, we could see that here. And again, since Unanet is one system, if we want to see, well, what made up this $86,000 in labor, we can click through and we can see who charged and how much they charged and what made up that number. We don't have to go to another report or another system to get at that information. Now we can also take that report I was just showing you and flip it on its side. So now instead of one big block per project, it's just one row per project, and you can kind of quickly scan down and see labor, ODCs, indirects. And then if we go over here, margin by project, margin by division, and then total margin here. So this is kind of just a different way to look at the same data we were just looking at. It's just kind of one row per project instead of one big block per project. And again, you define what the columns are. So as part of Unanet's report writer, you could say, just show me revenue, cost, profit. You actually have control over what these labels are and what the formulas are for the different reports. One other report that I'd like, actually a couple other reports I'd like to show is, you can show actual versus budgeted information. So before I showed you a projection for 2018, this is a projection for 2017. So it's, again, actuals represented by the asterisk, plans represented by the plus, actuals through today, plans as of tomorrow. So this is all actual historical data through June. July has both actuals and plans in it. And then beyond today's data is all plan data. So if we look at our unallocated budget over here, this is our budget less our actuals less our plans. So effectively we have $307,000 left to plan here. So if we go into the forecasting tool of Unanet, we can go in and plan in hours or FTEs. I'll just do some hours, sorry, FTEs there. Plan against that data warehouse project. Now if we go back to this and click on refresh, we should see this 307 go down. So now instead of 307, it's 269. So the idea here is manage this column to zero. The idea for project managers is get in, make your updates, get out, communicate with the customer, do the work, manage the project, not live inside of Unanet, but quickly make updates and get out and then track against the budgeted amount. Again, all being one system, all being focused on project information. I'm just going to pause and see if there's any other questions that people want to submit through the console. happy to show any type of report layout that people want to see. There's also more qualitative reports around, risk status or issue status. You can also attach documents within project notes. So if you wanted to attach a statement of work or contract award, you could attach Word, Excel, PowerPoint, PDF, any file type can be attached within Unanet and then also reported on. One other report I wanted to show was the project control panel. This is a newer report, but basically it allows you to look at multiple projects and then drill into the detailed project information. So from one report, we call it the control panel, from one report you can get to several other reports directly from here. So if you wanted to look at billing and revenue, you can see that. If you wanted to look at your periodic PSR, JSR type report that we just showed, you could do that. Status of all the invoices against the client, any transactions related to these projects, you can drill into the project directly. And then these numbers are clickable as well. So if you wanted to look at the AR balance, you could drill in there and see what's going on with accounts receivable. So speaking of accounts receivable, that segues us into billing and revenue recognition. So in Unanet, we support invoice formats that allow you to have time and materials and fixed price, and if you're doing cost plus all on the same invoice format. So you don't need to have different invoices for different types of contracts or types of projects. You can get everything onto one invoice in Unanet. So if you're using QuickBooks, you can do your cost plus billing directly out of QuickBooks, out of Unanet, because we're calculating the indirect rates for you and we're applying them on the invoices. And again, this invoice formatter is a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. The left-hand side controls the right-hand side. So the right-hand side is what the invoice is going to look like. The left-hand side is all the controls around the invoice. Sorry, I'm just trying to go to my console here. I thought a question had come in, but I was mistaken. All right, so basically, this is the invoice formatter. You come up with whatever invoice formats you want. You apply those invoice formats to your different customers or your different projects. You can come up with your list of labor categories with effective bill rates and dates associated with those labor categories. And then you can also have project-specific categories. So if you go into a particular project, these may be the labor categories that are applicable to this particular client or this particular project. And they can be a subset of the overall master labor categories. So when you're assigning people to the project, the same person could have different rates depending on what they're doing. Hours at $150 an hour. On that task, on this task, he's at $99 an hour. So basically the way this works is this is a report that's showing what we billed versus what we recognized in revenue. So for time and materials, the first row there, it's pretty much going to be the same thing. The 1.244 million is the 1.244 million. For fixed price, this next row, we're recognizing the revenue a little bit differently. And there's different ways you can recognize revenue for fixed price projects in Unanet. In QuickBooks, you'll be doing it based on when you bill it. But in Unanet, when you do a fixed priced billing, you can do it based on percent complete if you want to be in accordance with GAAP, or you can do a custom revenue recognition schedule. So if you do a schedule, what that does is it actually takes the billable amount and spreads it into the future. So it takes that 48,000 and then basically linearly spreads it into the future. If you wanted to move money around, you could move money around. So a question just came in. Thank you for asking the question. Does Unanet collect and report cumulative billed cost on each invoice? So if you're showing cost on each invoice, yes, we can show cumulative amounts as well as the amount for that particular invoice period. And you could also show billable amounts as well. All right. So just in the interest of time, just to walk through how this actually works, there's a posting process where we take data. Let's take data through May. So what this posting process does is it goes and looks for all of our approved timesheets and all of our approved expense reports, and then any fixed price items that have been marked as ready to be billed, and it shows them to us here. And if we wanted to click through, we could see the details behind those numbers. So if we go ahead and post, it runs through its process. Green is good. And then if we go back to this revenue report, if we click on refresh, it's going to populate this unbilled column, because now we have values sitting there as unbilled. And we've heard from customers this has significantly reduced the time it takes them to reconcile their unbilled, because they see it directly there. Now we've recognized the revenue for this first row. Again, it's a T&M project. We've done the work, so in accordance with GAAP, we've recognized the revenue, but we have yet to bill it. So to bill it, what we're going to do is just add invoice. We're going to invoice through 531, give an invoice date of 531, post date of 531, and then with one click we can generate as many invoices as you have to send off. And if your customer accepts an emailed invoice, you can email the invoice directly from Unanet. Well, it will contain a PDF attachment, or you can take the PDF from Unanet and get it to them, either soft copy, hard copy, however they accept it. So we go ahead and generate these invoices, runs through its process. Green is good. Go back to the billing and revenue report, click on refresh. It'll slide from unbilled over to draft. And then if someone is contesting an invoice, we can actually go in and look at the invoice. So say someone is contesting George Washington's charges on this invoice. We can actually go in and find George and effectively defer him. So now George no longer shows up on the invoice. And if we go back to that billing and revenue report, when we refresh, he'll slide back into the unbilled, and we can decide what to do with him next time, the 7,200. All right, and when we complete the invoice, that's what starts the aging process with accounts receivable, so we could run an AR aging report. And you could run this, just for your customer balances if you wanted to show customer balances only. All right, moving on here in the sake of time, a couple things that Robin highlighted that I wanted to mention on the account side. When you're looking at the accounts, we do have this designation of requiring projects for the account. So if it is a direct charge to like direct travel or something like that, on the journal entry or on the AP voucher, you'd have to put in a project associated with the line item. This operating bank account is not a project-related account, so you don't have to put in a project associated with it. And you can also restrict which accounts go with which organizations. So basically, you can set up your organizational hierarchy as many levels deep as you want, and then you can say, well, this account only goes to Engineering South, or Engineering South and Professional Services. So as you grow, it's very easy to scale out with different departments and then report based on the departments and restrict access within the departments. The one key thing I want to show with the accounts is you have the ability to define different cost pool groups. So this really, for project-driven professional services firms, this is really a differentiator, because you have the ability to see your different indirect costs and allocate them across different buckets. So basically, you can have as many pools as you want here, and the order you see them here is the order in which they're calculated. And if we go into a specific pool, we can say it's a year-to-date calculation or a month-to-date calculation, and then the base amount in the denominator will be based on the actual amount sitting in these accounts down here, or it will be based on a fixed amount like headcount or something like that, or hours, or percentage like square footage. But basically, if we take 60 in the numerator here, it's going to grab all the sub-accounts underneath 60. We don't need to show those here. It'll include them and automatically include any new accounts that put under 60. But if we go through our financials, GL cost pool calculation. You can also calculate on your budgets as well. So if you wanted to calculate forward rates, you could do that. If we calculate based on, let's see what's going on in the system. So it, again, runs through its process. Green is good. And then if we look at this, this is our statement of indirect rates. So this is effectively showing us how did we get to our rates. So how did we get our 26% fringe rate? Well, try to get this all on one screen for you. Each account, the value sitting in each account, again, they're all clickable values, so it's like QuickBooks where you can click on a value, it brings up the details. For each pool, what's in the numerator, what's in the denominator, and then the rate is showing here. And then the 241,000 that's allocated out of fringe gets put in the base of overhead and the base of G&A. I just want to warn everybody we have about 5 minutes left on the webinar, so again, if there are any questions, please submit those through the console. Happy to answer those, or I can just keep going on the financials, but if you have a specific question, I want to make sure that gets answered. So basically, this is a service center. There's no rate associated with it. It's more of just a pass-through. And then everything used in the numerator, everything used in the base, and then if we go over to the far right, anything that's not used. So for whatever reason, anything that was not used in the calculation would show up in this column, and it turns out there is something that's not used, and that's okay, actually, because if we look over here, it's actually unallowable. It's not being used. All right. Now also, if the auditors are in with you, you can kind of keep drilling down as far as how you got to these rates. So how did we get the 26% fringe rate? Well, we drill into that, and we can see what's in the numerator, what's in the denominator. We can say, well, what made up the $154,000 of labor? We can click on that, and it shows you, again, who charged and how much they charged and what made up that number. All right, just kind of going on here. Some of these, frankly, we're not making debits and credits sexier than they already are, but some of these features are pretty cool. You can close different components of the fiscal period. So if you wanted to shut off transactions through AP, you could shut those off here, and you could let other transactions run through. For journal entries, if you're putting in a journal entry, this is what a payroll journal entry would look like. You have every line item has an account org combination, debits match your credits, obviously. You can also attach documents to all the financial documents in Unanet. So you can, if you had an Excel spreadsheet as far as how you got to a journal entry calculation, you could do that. You can do reversing and or recurring entries. Just moving quickly through here. AP didn't really get into that very much, but on the AP side, you can create different AP vouchers, and then you can attach documents to these vouchers as well. So if you have an invoice from your vendor as far as what you owe them, you could attach that here so your filing cabinets go away. You'll notice at the bottom too, you can save, submit, and post. These are all roles within Unanet. So for example, you could have an AP user who can only save and submit, and then you could have a poster who actually goes in and posts the document, and that's when it shows up on your financial reports. So based on the level of access, you can save, submit, post. Question come in, does Unanet work with Paychex, ADP, and other payroll systems to import information? Yeah, so the journal entry, the journal entry payroll information can be imported. So this information you could import as opposed to enter directly through the web interface. So if you have basically a CSV file, an Excel file. How do expense vouchers flow to the GL? So now that right when we're at the very end, all the questions start coming in. So basically there's this create vendor invoices from expense reports. So once the expense report is approved, if you're reimbursing them through AP, we can create vendor invoices directly from the expense reports here. So once the expense report's been approved, again, if your company policy is to reimburse through accounts payable, you can come in here, go grab all the approved expense reports, and you can make AP vouchers out of them, and then you can submit the voucher, and then the employee gets reimbursed either through a check or through an ACH notcha automated clearinghouse, bank feed. If they're paying through payroll, which was the other question, we send both time data and expense data to payroll systems, and we interface with a variety of different payroll systems. So basically, there's a one-time mapping process that maps the data from Unanet, and then and we have access to every field in our database here. You can pick and choose whichever fields you want. You can run functions against those fields to format the data appropriately. So once you run this, just pull back some data, it's going to spit out what looks like what looks like gibberish to you and I, to you and me, but it's the way this particular data was designed to pull. So this is what this particular payroll system would expect to appear on the expense side, and then on the time side there would be a different format. But that kind of brings me to one final closing point, and I know we're running out of time here, but basically Unanet has a great import-export capability where you can dump all the data out for any of the major objects. So I just dumped out all the people, opened them up in Excel, and then we could do a mass change here. We could change everybody's cost rate, one-time change, and then go back to Unanet and do an import, and we could import that data. So you could do that for not just any data related to people, but any data related to customers, vendors, projects, rates, etc. Anything listed here. I think that is getting near the end of our time. Robin, did you have any final parting thoughts for the audience?
No, I really didn't. I think, one of the biggest things that you see here when you look at Unanet and you compare it to QuickBooks is that ability to have the workflow with the submitting and approving and then posting, the real-time reporting at the project level. Then you have the whole drill down capability, indirect rates. I mean, there's a lot here that currently with QuickBooks you have to have third-party tools like iCat or use Excel or other things to support.
Right, and probably would be good to finish on the kind of the finished process here. That 5-piece document you showed this is an income statement, right? So there's obviously different ways to manipulate the income statement. You can have a trending income statement that shows period over period. You can show different values. This is showing period to date to year to date. You can drill into these values. So if you want to click through and see the details behind a number on an income statement, you can do that. But in the criteria, you can say, do you want to look at previous year or the budget? Do you want to look at a particular version of the budget? Do you want to roll up the accounts to certain levels? Do you want to show different organizations? So again, there's a lot of different selection criteria in the reports. And then when you run the reports, once you determine the format you like, you can save that criteria. So you give it a name, and that's when it's there for you always, and you pick which of your dashboards you want to add it to. But I know we're getting to our time here. I appreciate everyone's time. A couple other questions coming in. There is the Unanet Knowledge Center, kc.unanet.com. These are best practices that have been submitted by other customers. This is publicly available. You don't have to be a customer to go here. So if you have want to play around with the Knowledge Center, you can see that. We also have videos on our website. If you just go to unanet.com/videos, there are some kind of self-service videos on different functionality within Unanet that we went through today. Appreciate everyone's time. Apologies for the overrun here, and if you have any questions, please do let us know. Thanks, Robin.
Yep, thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone.